You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the former First Minister of Wales and now Professor of Law at Aberystwyth University, Carwyn Jones, and barrister and former Government Minister, Soubry. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The Guardian has an exclusive poll which suggests that more than 70% of people are frightened that the NHS may have to start charging for care, despite always having been free at the point of use. The Express, meanwhile, says that striking doctors have warned that their action for more pay could continue until 2025. The Times, meanwhile, says doctors have been told by the Health Secretary that they can have a bigger pay rise if they end their strikes. The Mail also claims an exclusive with a poll which suggests that the government should ease off on its plan to ban petrol and diesel cars by 2030, which manufacturers say would have ruinous consequences for the industry. The Metro leads with confrontation at Lord's between Australian cricketers and members of the MCC, who accuse them of cheating at the second Ashes test. The headline there, just not cricket. Same story on the front of tomorrow's Sun, with the headline, out of order. The Telegraph focuses on the issue of free speech, with the Treasury telling banks that they're not allowed to blacklist customers who express controversial views. The Financial Times carries a warning from PIMCO, the biggest firm in bond management, that dodging a recession in the global economy will not be as easy as the markets seem to think. And the Daily Star tells us that China is planning to send miners to the moon to dig up material for creating cosmic nuclear weapons. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by former First Minister of Wales and now Professor of Law at Aberystwyth University, Carwyn Jones, and barrister and former Government Minister, Soubry. Welcome to you both. Let's start tonight with the FT, their front page, and the top left of the front page. Actually, it's not the... doesn't seem like the boldest headline, but anyway, it's France crisis, Paris braced for more strife. Anna, take us into this story. I mean, first of all, can you believe the scenes that we're seeing coming out of France?
No, they are shocking. I mean, obviously, France has got a very serious problem when you have police officers shooting what looks to be a wholly innocent young man in the head for absolutely no good reason whatsoever, and he dies. It's appalling. And the reaction, if I may say, is largely understandable. The grandmother, as you've been reporting tonight, of this boy, well, he's not a boy, he's a young man, is now appealing for calm. And it is right that there are also people taking political advantage of it, but it is still a very serious problem. And Macron tonight has held a meeting with his ministers, and it's said that things are improving, but they're still very bad. And that's the report that's in the FT. It's got better, but it's still got troops, as you can see in that photograph, at the Arc de Triomphe and throughout the rest of Paris, and indeed in other cities.
Yes, and Carwyn, as we see from the armed troops there at the Arc de Triomphe, we also know that the Champs-Élysées has been blocked off. There have been armoured vehicles deployed in Marseille and Lyon, and they are braced for an actual sixth night of unrest, but no state of emergency declared as yet.
Well, when you have soldiers on the street, that's a sign that there is, in effect, a state of emergency. I mean, no country wants to have soldiers having to keep public order. The people of Northern Ireland will tell you that when the army's on the streets, then things are abnormal. But it's a lesson in how quickly things can spiral out of control. What began as a protest with a legitimate grievance has just spiraled now into unremitting vandalism. I mean, why would you burn down a library? Why would you look to destroy businesses in your own community? It's your own people then who begin to suffer. I hope now certainly we'll see a reduction in that violence over the course of the next few evenings. But to see troops outside what looks like the Arc de Triomphe is a sure sign that France is in a very difficult place.
Yes, I mean, it does seem, and let's hope this is a situation that things are calming down, because 719 arrests were made on Saturday. That's compared to 1,311 on Friday. So, I mean, it does seem as if things are calming down. We've, of course, got people on the ground there to report whatever the situation becomes later this evening. Let's have a look at the Telegraph. And this story, Anna, Sunak told to cut migration by 66% or risk voter exodus. This is from his own backbench Conservative MPs.
Well, this is from a group called the New Conservatives, another party within a party. And this is a real headache now for Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister. Never mind the actual, in my opinion, madness of a policy that you're going to cut migration by 2/3 in a year, which is impossible. But in any event, yet more evidence of how we have failed in our country to understand the considerable benefits of immigration for many decades, centuries indeed. And of course, the other part of all of this is, if we don't have people coming in to do some amazing work in our country, who is going to do those jobs? Because we don't have the people to do them. But in any event, I think the real thing is that this group, there's only 20 of them, but they're getting on the front page of that newspaper, and they're making a lot of noise, and that's a big headache for Rishi Sunak, who's struggling to meet any of his 5 pledges, and he frankly needs this like a hole in the head.
Yes, Carwyn, I mean, they're saying that they're simply calling on the Prime Minister to honour the party's manifesto pledge.
Well, it's a fairly strategy-free way of doing it. You can't just say, let's cut the numbers and that's enough. That doesn't smack to me much of having a plan. Now, let's not pretend that the cutting immigration is easy. It isn't easy. While people are fleeing from countries where they feel in danger, where their lives are threatened, they're going to move, and they're going to try and go somewhere that's safer. And while that persists, there will always be people who want to come across the channel. But the Conservative Party now is looking a bit like the sketch from The Life of Brian, the People's Front of Judea. There are so many different factions now within the Conservative Party that you begin to wonder whether it's still a coherent party in that sense. And for me, there's an element of snobbery here as well, I have to say, because one of the areas where they want to remove temporary visas is from people who are care workers. Now, care workers are essential. How many people want to work as a care worker? Let's be honest about it. And we've relied on people from other countries working as care workers, looking after people who are disabled, looking after people who are frail in old age. And now these people are saying, we don't want any more. But we're happy to have people who actually will work for higher paid jobs. So firstly, care workers are not well paid. And that's another issue, I suppose. But we do need people to make sure that the most vulnerable people we have in society are looked after. And simply saying we're not going to give visas to care workers is just the exact opposite of that.
Yes, well, they've set out 12 measures that they want Mr Sunak to introduce to cut migration, and they include raising salary thresholds so migrant workers have to earn more to qualify for a visa, restricting foreign students to only top universities, and further curbs on the number of relatives they can bring. So, I mean, they certainly have thought about how he could carry out the policy of cutting migration, quite a detailed report that they've handed to him. We shall see the response. Let's move on to the Express. And this quite worrying story about, well, doctors saying that they could be striking until 2025, Anna.
Yes, well, another headache for the government. But you see, the real story that the Express is beginning to report quite properly on is the level of anger amongst doctors. So we're facing, I think it's another 5-day strike that's coming up from the junior doctors?
Yes.
I mean, doctors are really, really hacked off. And junior doctors actually is a huge swathe of doctors. It's everybody who's newly qualified right up to those who are just about to become consultants. We know that consultants have for the first time voted also to go on strike. So the level of anger amongst doctors should never be underestimated. And it's not just about pay though that's obviously the huge factor. And they say they want a 35% rise because their pay in real terms has been cut so much. And as a result of that, a large number of doctors are either taking early retirement or they're going overseas. So in other words, there's a real problem with retention of doctors. There's also this other problem which we have, which is that so many of our doctors are absolutely burnt out. I mean, I'm a trustee of a little charity called Doctors in Distress, and the stories that we hear of doctors, and indeed many other health professionals as well, is people who are right at the limit, at the end of their working tether, and they are simply, even though they're devoted to the job, to serving patients and to the NHS, they just can't go on anymore. And the government's got to grasp this nettle, and that means they're going to have to pay them more. And it's right across the sector of publicly funded professionals. My own profession of barristers, criminal barristers, publicly funded. People are burnt out and they're not feeling valued in terms of pay primarily, but also their working conditions.
And Carwyn, to get to some sort of solution, that they are going to have to talk to them, aren't they? I mean, the British Medical Association quoted as saying that, you know, there'll be no let up in crippling industrial action if that is what it takes.
Well, yeah, I think the story it seems to be about England rather than the whole of the UK. Not that things are easy anywhere. And more money is needed across the UK's 4 countries in order to have the kind of health service we want. I mean, there are 2 problems that exist here. First of all, the NHS is still playing catch-up after COVID. A lot of operations had to be cancelled. They've all had to be rescheduled, and that puts a lot of extra pressure on the medical staff. And secondly, of course, recruiting more doctors. That's something that we need to focus on, and retaining doctors. It's one thing to say, well, we want to train more doctors. It's another thing to say we want to make sure that they want to stay working within the health services of the UK, and that needs to be made attractive to them. I mean, medicine is one of those qualifications which is portable. You can travel anywhere in the world, and if you have that choice as a doctor, you're going to want to make sure that you're making the right choice, and that means making sure that the NHS across the UK is seen as a good place to work, where people are not worked endlessly without sufficient time off, where there's sufficient support across all of the medical professions that work the NHS, and that's not where we are. I think we have a situation now where doctors feel, certainly from this article, that more needs to be done to be able to get out of the difficulties that have been caused by COVID, and that means more money coming from Whitehall, from the Treasury, because Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland depend mainly on money that comes from that source. There's not a lot of financial flexibility there for those governments. This needs to be resolved, and resolved soon.